Well, hello everybody. Thank you again for coming along. We are going to do a quick demonstration again and also introduce some new features. So I think some of you are new to Learning Journal, some of you are existing customers. We've actually got some questions from existing users as well. So we've got quite a few videos already on the basics of the system. I'm just going to take a quick tour around that for those of you who don't know it, but we'll also get some new features, some exciting things that we've got about to launch as well, and I'll give you a quick tour of the app that you can use on your iPads and soon to be Android tablets as well. So the screen you've got at the start here, this is your login screen. So here we go, I'll just log in with my staff account. So for those of you who are not familiar with the system, it's for taking your children's profiles online. And the way we've got this test account is set up for a typical private nursery with a baby room, toddler room, and 3 to 5s room. These are just ways for you to organize your child's profiles. So if I click into our 3 to 5s room, I can see all the children that we've got in here. So you see we've got 8 or 9 children there. There's not a limit to the number of children that you can have in a room. It's really just a way to organize them, and you can set that up however you want that in your settings. So if I click into one child's profile, let's concentrate on Alistair here and have a look and see what he's been up to. So if you imagine, if you're still using paper profiling, this is the same as opening up his paper profile and seeing all his observations. And they go from newest, so there's one taken on the 4th of June, all the way to the oldest. We can scroll down and see all these old observations and what Alistair's been doing while he's been at the nursery. Each observation has a description. So this is the content that's entered by the nursery. It's got an image or video or multiple of each of those. So you can have up to 4 pictures. It does tell you the member of staff that took this observation. And if that staff member's uploaded their photo will appear here as well. There's a comment section which can be added to by staff or the children themselves. And there's a tab up here which tells you all the outcomes that have been applied to this observation. So if I click on that, you can see the different outcomes from this child's curriculum. So Alistair here is following the Curriculum for Excellence, as he's based in Scotland. But as you'll see, we've got lots of different frameworks from all over the country and beyond that are already built into the system, and we're flexible enough that we can actually change the content if you need something specific. Okay, so to take an observation, let's just go through this very quickly. I know a lot of you may have seen this before, but all you would do is click on the Add Observation button. This takes you to the observation creation process, and you really just follow all the instructions. So describe what you're seeing. So let's say Alistair was learning to count to 10. So I always do something very basic in here. There's an opportunity to take the child's voice. So this is where you would ask the child how they felt about this activity. And at this point, you might want to hand over the tablet or ask them how they're feeling about it, and you can ask them to click on any of these faces. So say how they felt about it, and then you can add a little quote in here. I loved it, said Alistair. There's an option to add in next steps as well. Next steps are optional, and this is what you would add a next step in if you wanted to set a goal for this child based on what you'd seen in the description. So in this case, Alistair was learning to count to 10, but perhaps he was getting his numbers mixed up or getting them around the wrong way. You could maybe put in there, consistently count to 10 without getting your numbers around the wrong way. You can also track next steps. There's a next step tracker as well. The date of the activity is recorded here, but if this is something that happened in the past and you hadn't had time to write it up yet, you can change your date. And then you just upload your content or your media. So if we click on upload photograph, we can see we've got 4 slots to upload our pictures or our photographs. I'm just going to upload a couple here of different things. A crocodile and a kangaroo, and then we'll do one more. You don't have to upload 4 photos. There just happens to be 4 slots there. Bear in mind, if you upload a video, It can take longer because the video files are going to be larger as well. And if you want to, you can swap the order of these photos around if you really want to. At this stage now, you can save and exit and come back to it, or you can carry on to complete the observation. So let's carry on, click on the next button. And this is where we add learning outcomes. Now, this child's on the early level of the Curriculum for Excellence, but you can actually work across different curricula by using this drop-down menu here. So if I click on this, you can see all the curricula that we've activated for this account. You wouldn't normally have as many as this. This is a demonstration account here we used to show off, but you know, if you're based in England, you would only be on the UIFS, for example. And we've got all the UIFS Development Matter statements down here. Let's flick back to the Curriculum for Excellence though, and say we're doing a numeracy observation. So let's click into numeracy, and we can add in our outcomes if we want to. All the ones down the right-hand side. I was going to pick random ones here. We can go across different curricular areas also. So we're in numeracy here, but let's say it's also to do with sciences. So if I click on sciences, you can see our sciences outcomes appear down the right-hand side. And I'll add 2 in for that as well. Now, before you can move on, you're asked to rate the child's understanding. It's a traffic light system, red, amber, green by default, although in your settings you can change these titles. The parents of the children do not get to see the ratings that you're adding in here. This is for your own internal monitoring. So you just make a selection using these little buttons, and then you'd move on to the next stage. You can see here at this point we're on our step 2, and we've got this observation saved for later. It's not completed yet. And we can move on to the next stage, which is our progression pathways. So we can, exactly as before, these are the I can statements, again, specific to the different curriculum. If we were to go into, for example, EYFS here, we see our characteristics for effective learning. And again, we can add these in just using these green buttons down the side. This section is optional. You don't have to add in any I can statements or characteristics. You can just move on to the final stage. And if we do that, we see we've got a summary of what we've done so far. So we've got our observation, Alistair was learning to count to 10. Now the system is asking us, do we want to connect this to previous next steps? So in the right-hand side here, we can see the active next steps that Alistair is working towards. And these are to be able to choose an activity of interest and play with friends, and to continue to explore books and listening to them as a group. So if we felt that the observation we have just observed, the activity we just observed, if that contributes towards any of these next steps, we can connect the observations together using this green button here. And we can then say whether the next step's been completed or not. If we check it, we're saying that he's now achieved this next step. If we don't check it, we're still working towards completing this, but our observation is a milestone on the way to completing that. So next steps maybe take a couple of observations for you to get your head around how that works, but once you understand it, it's quite simple. I'm going to disconnect this one because I don't want to connect them up. You can choose whether you want to publish the observation, save it for later, or have it deleted. If you publish the observation, it will make it available to parents when they next log in. So if a parent happened to log in the next 2 minutes and I'd published this, they would be able to see all the content that I'd published. So don't publish anything that you're not quite ready for a parent to see. But even if it has been published, you can go back and edit it and make changes. You can save it for later if you want maybe to have it reviewed by a colleague or by a manager. I'm going to set this one to publish though. Then we can choose to publish this observation for other children. So this is really handy when you're doing a group observation and you don't want to have to go through this process for every child. So publish this observation for other children, click on finish. And then what we're shown is a list of all the children that are in the same room as Alistair. So here we're in his 3 to 5 room here. We can look at all the rooms if we want to, and we can see all the children in those rooms. Now, what we're doing here is copying over the description and next steps and everything that we've done for this observation. So we have to be a little bit careful here, because if we copy, let's say we add in Davina and Anya and Graham to this observation, and they were all taking part in this activity. If we copy this over, it will copy over whatever is in this description box, and it will say Alistair was learning to count to 10. Obviously, we don't want Alistair's name to appear in Davina, Anya, or Graham's profiles. So what we can do is we can replace the child's name in the box below with the code first name, which is all in one bracket. So if I just remove Alistair's name and replace it with a square bracket and type in first name, then close that. What this will do is it will replace Alistair's name with the first name of each of these children. So if I click on begin here, we can see that this is copying everything over. And we can now, we've completed that observation. We can now go back to Alistair's observations. We can see that Alistair was learning to count to 10. It was created by myself. Alistair loved it. And we've got all those photographs here. And in our learning outcomes and progression pathways tabs, we've got all the outcomes that were taken by Alistair. So that is taking observation. It's very simple. Hopefully you can see that. And once you've done it a few times, it's really easy. So a couple of things to highlight that have maybe changed for some of the people who've been using this for quite a while. You might see now that we've got an extra row of icons up the top here, which tell us whether we're looking at all the observations, only our published observations, our observations are saved or incomplete. If you find an observation that is incomplete, although Alistair doesn't have any, if I quickly add an observation here, and if I save and exit this observation before we've added any outcomes, it will be saved as an incomplete observation. So you can see here we've saved for later and it's incomplete and it's marked as red. So these observations aren't visible to parents. And it just highlights to the staff that there's this observation for this child that has not been finished yet. We didn't really surface this before, and it could have, all these incomplete observations would have been lost or forgotten about. So this makes it a lot easier for you to be able to see that. A couple of other features that we have tried to explain in our newsletters, but I don't know if everyone gets to see those. When you're looking at the children here, you will see we've got these little icons. So this one's got a picture of an eye, and this one's got a picture of a person. So what this icon tells us is this child has not had an observation in the minimum time that we've set in our configuration. Now, on my demonstration account, you can see here it says this child has no observations recorded in 7 days. You can change that 7 days in your configuration tab. But this highlights children who have either not had any observations or they've been missing for a while or whatever reason. The little one here, this tells us this tells that this child has not got a parent associated with them. So this will highlight that you've got a profile, but if the child has parents in your nursery, then they don't have access to this child's profile. So they won't be seeing any updates that you are sending out. So that just highlights that. It's maybe easier to see this if we look at this in list view. So if I click on this button up here called list, you can actually see the children that we have here. And again, you can see any ones that have got no observations or ones that have got no parents. And if we look at all the rooms, it's easy to see that as well. Now, for those of you who work in local authority nurseries, and well, actually for anybody, but a lot of you will be moving over the summer. Children will be moving rooms, or they'll be moving from their nursery to their primary class. And an easy way for you to do this, and a quick way for you to do this, is using this list view. And if we say that we now want to move Abby into the primary 1 class, and all these first 4 children into primary 1, we can easily do that just with this drop down. And that actually moves everything over for them. You would also need to change their staff member or key worker if that's going to change as well. And then if you want to change them on their curriculum, you can do that too. So you can say they're on the first level, for example, of the curriculum for excellence. And we can just move them down this way. And everything saves there automatically, so you don't have to do that. I'm just going to move some of these back here so that I can show you some other things. We've got a new update coming out either later today or later this week, that has got a new feature on it called Stories. And to show you that, I'm going to bring over our test site so that you can see this. So this, what Stories will do is will remove, give you the option to create an observation but not have it linked to a curriculum. I'm just waiting for my test server to warm up here. Okay, while I'm waiting for that, we can actually show you this also on the iOS app. So, well, we'll come back to that later. So here's our test room, for example. So here we've got, this is our test account where we have new features on here. So I'm going to click back into Alistair's, and when we look at his observations, what we can see is that up to where we previously only had this add observation button, we can now add a story. If I click on add story, it looks exactly the same, but you can see we don't have any, well, if I just put in so we can put in our description, we can put in our child's voice, our date, obviously, we can upload photos and videos again. Let me add something else. Let's do the turtle. And we can publish it or save it. And that's all that we do. So if I save and exit this, we can see that we now have a new card. So it's called a story, and we've got an observation. And these are for those times when you just want to capture something and not link it to the curriculum. So previously we'd kind of made a sort of workaround where you would add an observation and it wasn't tracked, but you still had to go through that big long process. But adding stories in now is going to give you that opportunity to do that much more quickly, and just take little bits of life in the nursery, turn them into these stories, and share them with parents as well. So that's something that we've been asked about for quite a while now. We've actually managed to get that out, and that will be coming out to all accounts in the next couple of days, sometime this week. You can filter by stories. You can then filter by only your published observations. You can turn stories off, for example. So there's a lot of flexibility with that there. Now, this is also mirrored on the next update of our iOS app. So if you hopefully, all you people out there that are using iPads, hopefully you will have downloaded the iOS app that you're seeing here, and you will, let me unlock the device. You'll have seen how quick it is to take observations with the iOS device. If you haven't, please, as soon as you've finished watching this, go to the App Store on your iPad, search for Learning Journals. It's the #1 result for Learning Journals, and download that app, log in, and see how you use it. You'll be able to take observations much more quickly and also work offline. So I'll give you a quick overview. We do have video on the iOS app, but we've got a couple of updates on this as well. So it's, if you see on the left-hand side, we've actually focused a lot more on the staff member. So here's Marion Smith, our nursery manager. And on the right-hand side, we've got the recent observations for Marion here. We can, if I click on the children down here, we can see all the children in the nursery. We can go into all their profiles as well. So here's Alistair that we looked at on the other site. And then we can see all the observations for Alistair here as well. Now, if I go back to my dashboard, we'll see we've also included the new story button here as well. So we can now, instead of, or as well as taking an observation for a child, we can add a story for a child. So if I click on new story, we can choose whichever child we want to add. So let's add it to Amy. And it works exactly the same way. We can put in our description of what's happening. Amy was enjoying her lunch, for example. And we can add to our story by clicking on this photo and video button down the bottom here. And when I do that, it asks if I want to take a new picture by clicking on the camera down the bottom left, that camera icon, or if I want to use something existing from our camera roll, and I'm going to do one of these. I'll do this red panda. Oh, and the meerkat, and the owl too. Why not? I'll do them all. And you can include the child's voice in this one as well. So let's say that she liked it and we had fun. And that's it. So that's taken a story. So we've done everything we need to do there. We can save and close this, or we can move on to the next stage. So we can see here I've got, if we go back into Amy's profile, oh, I actually didn't publish that story. So there we go. So this is a test, so my observations, drafts. There's Amy's story, which is a draft. We can see it at the top. I can go into this and then we can publish it. We can choose to publish it for other children as well. If I wanted to, I could add more children to this story, or we can just publish straight away. And there's Amy's story has been published. And if I go into Amy's profile, there we go. We've got our story up the top. So again, it's stories are a really quick way to take those observations that are not required to be linked to the curriculum. So they'll be live in the next iOS update, but if you're not using the iOS app, please do go and download that now from the App Store, because I think you'll find it makes a huge difference to you, especially if you struggle with things like internet connections. Now, we had a couple of questions in advance from some people here, so I'm just going to work through these just now. So we had a question from Seema Marashi, and they asked, how can we work the learning journals offline? Well, so I've just shown you here, Seema, if you are watching, you need to just go to your App Store, search for learning journals, and download that app, and then you can log in. If you go offline, so you can see that currently I'm connected to Wi-Fi at the top here. You can see the Wi-Fi icon. Now, if I turn, oh, don't know. I think because I'm connected to my computer here, it's not going to allow me to turn my Wi-Fi off. So if I turn my Wi-Fi off, a red band will appear at the top saying that you need to be connected to upload images, to upload observations, but you can still upload observations. You're not restricted. You can still take observations in the same way. I'm actually connected through a cable to my computer, so it won't allow me to go offline here. But you can, if you're out in the garden or if you're out and about doing forest school things, you can take your iPad with you, take these observations, and you are able to upload them straight to your account. And when you get back into your nursery and you find a signal, the device will sync those automatically when you next log in. You've also asked about daily feedback on the app, and I'm assuming that means daily diaries. So for those of you who don't know, there's a feature on the web version of the system, if I bring that over here, called Daily Diaries. Now, if you don't have this activated, just get in touch with us. We can activate that for you. And what Daily Diaries do is they allow you to, excuse me, they allow you to do things like monitor food, nappy changes, toileting, sleeps, all that sort of thing. So here we've got all the children in the nursery. We can then say how much they had of their lunch or breakfast. For example, we can, if there's any nappies and things, we can say that 9:30, Abby had a nappy. Now those things this feature is not part of the iOS app at the moment. And it may be something that we do introduce in the future, but the iOS app was really intended to be able to take observations quickly offline. So at the moment, Seema, no, you can't take daily diaries on the app, but it might be something that we add in the future. We've got another question about the cohort tracker from Angela. She's asked, how do we print off the cohort tracker? Well, luckily, we've just improved what the printing of the cohort tracker looks like. So to access the cohort tracker, you go to your Children tab and click on Cohort Tracking. You then choose the parameters that you want to see a report for. Let's say it's Curriculum for Excellence, and submit that. And then we can see a cohort report. Now, obviously it's a large, wide document for each curriculum, really. We can see all the different activities that have been taken for each child. If we look down the columns, we can see where there are gaps in the curricular areas. And we can make manual adjustments to these as well by clicking on these boxes and saying, well, actually, I know that Robin is green in all areas of health and well-being, for example, and we can go through and manually amend those. But if you wanted to print this out, we click on the cohort report PDF. You get this little message, and it tells you that your cohort report PDF will appear in your download tab. Now, it can take a few minutes, depending on the size of your report, it can take a few minutes for that to appear. But then if you go to your downloads tab, we can see that the report I've just requested hasn't started yet, so it's still working away in the background. But I did do one earlier on, and we can download that, and that should just appear here. There we go. So there's the cohort report split into all the different areas, and we can see all the children in here. And it makes it nice and easy for you to see that. Now, it does tell you the date that you've done this, so you can keep these for the future and refer back to them. And yeah, so that all that information is in there as well, and you can have a look at that. We have got a big update coming to the tracking. I'm going to do another video on that in the next week or so, but we've got a huge update coming to our tracking system, and that will allow you to do historical reports and comparisons. So it's very exciting. I'm not going to talk too much about it just now, but it'll allow you to do things like, say, our child Alistair, for example. I want to see how we had assessed him when he joined the nursery, what he looked like 6 months ago, and what he currently looks like today, and compare all those reports on one page. So it's very exciting. You'll be able to see that progress all on one screen, and really demonstrate the progress and the activities that we've done for one child. So another question we had was from Nicola Collins. How do we access loose parts when inputting an observation? So what Nicola is referring to is a curriculum that's called loose parts. So for anyone out there who wants to add the available curricula to their system, you just need to go to your configuration tab here. And then our second item down is called Curricula. If we click on that, this is where you see, you might not have ever looked in here, but this is where you see all the different curricula that are available for you to add to your system. You can see there's quite a lot. I know a lot of our customers in England will only use EYFS, and that's great. I wish we were all like that. But around the rest of the world, there are many flavors of different curricula. You can see, for example, the Curriculum for Excellence has various flavors of Midlothian, for Ayrshire, for the Borders, for Glasgow. And if we scroll down here, it's one of our recent ones, so I can add it in. We have got loose parts. Yeah, so if I check this box, the Curriculum for Excellence, loose parts, this will now be added to, if I click on one of our children, let's stick with Alistair, add an observation. And once I get through this first stage, we can see that our loose parts are available now to add into here. And yeah, so we can just add into this curriculum. So if you want to add in more curricula to your system, or you want to have a look at the other curricula that are available, you can do it through that configuration tab. We've got one last question here from Pam. Pam has asked, can a weekly sheet be printed off to show next steps for all children? So the short answer at the moment, Pam, is unfortunately not. But next steps are something we continue to work on. And being able for you to have a list of all your active next steps is something that we would like to get to. But what you can do is you can go into each child And again, if you use Alistair as an example, each child has their next step tracker down the left-hand side here. So we can see these are the active next steps that Alistair is working on. These ones that we saw earlier, to be able to choose an activity of interest and play with friends and continue to explore books relating to these observations taken back in December and back in March. So these are the active next steps for this particular child. What Pam you're looking for is every child on a list of all these next steps. And that's not something that's possible at the moment, but it is something we're working towards and will be in a future update. But for every child, you can see an achievement record and print an achievement record of all the next steps they've had. So we can create an achievement report for this, for the next steps for this particular child. That's all we've got for updates this time, everybody. So thank you very much for coming along and sharing this with us. As I say, we've got a couple of important updates coming out. We've got stories being added to the web and the iOS apps later this week. And we have an Android version of the app coming at the same time, which will already have stories on it. And we've got the huge update about tracking, which I will do another video on shortly. Now, if there was any questions that anyone had that they hadn't had answered today, or they didn't get a chance to ask, I think I answered the one that we did get asked. If you go to our website, learningjournals.co.uk, you can either get in touch with us on the phone line up here, or we have a contact form on this page here as well. You can ask us any questions at all. If you're not currently using the system, but you do want to get a free trial by clicking on the free trial link for nurseries, fill in the form on the left-hand side and we'll get your account set up as quick as possible. Hopefully that's everything that you need. If there's anything else, please do get in touch. We're around all the time and we'd love to hear from you. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Speak to you soon.